Nihilism is dangerous. And what I mean by that is it's the thought of that the world doesn't matter and that nothing matters. And it rejects traditional morality, religion, and any sort of aesthetic, seeing them as practically arbitrary and worthless. And with that sort of thinking, it's a rejection of life in general as we know it. We have a foundation of morality and societal standards from our history, and that completely rejects all of it. And a couple of works that kind of portray this idea is Dostoevsky's, if I'm pronouncing that right, Notes from the Underground and Crime and Punishment. And these out of these works, Notes from the Underground tried to and did pretty clearly point out the failure of nihilism, where the second part of the book shows the practical consequences of nihilism. The underground man basically attempts to act on his own twisted principles that led to only misery and self-loathing. And this is portrayed in a lot of our lives when it comes to just anything really. When we're on our phones or when we're eating bad things and we're like, "Oh, why does it matter? Why does it matter for us if we're just all going to die?" For most people, there's no heaven or hell. There's no sense of what's going to happen after this life, so they just completely de-rationalize everything that they're doing now and make okay with all the wrong that they do. And Crime and Punishment is basically the radicalization of nihilism. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Raskolnikov's motivation for the murder of the caretaker and her sister is driven by the extraordinary view of everyone would be better off without the caretaker, or not the caretaker, but the corrupt sister who had all this money and was doing evil things and mistreating her disabled sister. This extraordinary thinking of thinking that you can play God in the sense of everyone, including himself, would be better off. The consequences basically were enacted with him murdering that woman and her sister, her disabled sister, walking in on it, and then him having to murder her. This extraordinary nihilism viewpoint is what drives people to do these such wide things, these such extraordinary things. And this whole thought process, nihilism in general, and I'm speaking directly mostly from Russian nihilism, this just represents a destructive and self-defeating like philosophy. It rejects morality, faith, any sort of human connection because what's the point? And in life, you kind of have to have that point in order to keep going. My key takeaway is that their reasons for to keep going is because they know more about like this way of thinking, so they think that their viewpoint and they are above everyone. And them thinking that they're above everyone gives them the right to think this way and to act this way, when in reality, it just poisons them. It poisons their thinking. It poisons their entire life. They never get to enjoy anything except for themselves. And not only is that selfish, but it's self-destructive. And it gets people to do heinous acts without actually wanting to do them. They make it okay in their brains because of the way that they think on their day-to-day basis and how they treat other people. And this is just completely flawed in the way of thinking because you have to live for other people in life. You kind of have to be able to be happy with your family, with friends also, that you and people you don't even know, random interactions with strangers that make you laugh, that make you smile. The small things are what makes life life, right? So when you completely reject the whole philosophy and ideology of God, morality, faith, anything, social interactions, you kind of isolate yourself and make yourself miserable and lonely. And who wants to live a lonely life that's completely miserable? I don't think anyone does. A lot of people prefer to be alone and prefer to not be around people, but they're not thinking that their life means nothing and that nothing is worth anything. Like the only thing that's worth a thought is the thought of thinking that nothing is worth anything and realizing that. And once you realize, and the whole thought between these two characters in these two books is that since they realize that and they have that knowledge, they are better than these people who conform to these systems and morality and faith and everything. And it makes no sense because that's kind of the underlying reason on why people live. And so if you don't have that, you're not going to want to live. I just never understood the point of nihilism and how people go through. Like, I don't think I've ever been through a stage where I've had a nihilistic like point of view in life. Never in my life. Like, I don't think I've ever like thought that nothing mattered and that nothing is going to result in anything in the afterlife. I can proudly say that I've never thought that. I've always thought in like karma, afterlife karma. Before I was religious, I've always thought that like if there is a heaven and hell, there's got to be something that underlies and says what gets you there or what is okay and what's not, and that's where we get morality from. Half of like 95% of our morality is not subjective. So how I just don't understand that whole viewpoint of thinking that nothing in this world matters. Like the only thing that overtakes that thought is not only nihilism but sadness and despair and depression. I feel like that targets people to get into nihilism and to become nihilistic, but overall, it's just not worth it. It's not worth your time and effort to think that nothing matters in this lifetime, that we're just premortal soup floating on a rock doing nothing for the universe. You have to find that existential reasoning, or even if it's not extraterrestrial or like God, it can still be something somewhat materialistic or socialistic or family, like family wise. I never understood people who do that. If you're into nihilism and you'd love to leave a comment about your thinking, your whole thought process behind it, and kind of explain it a little deeper, um, I've read both of these books mostly, and I just, like I said, I just can't get behind it. It's interesting. It's very interesting to see these sort of people expose the root causes and the underlying problems with nihilism, but I don't think I can ever agree with it. But if you have any comments to say, let me know down below. I appreciate every single one of you. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.